As Taehyun continued to stare at Leviathan, he instinctively knew that something was different with this sword, and the mana the demonic sword was giving off was on a whole different level. I would have easily grabbed this sword if it was a sword with just a variety of special abilities, but something really feels different. Though, it's a sword made by Junseo. With cautious hands, Taehyun nervously grabbed Leviathan, and in an instant, a golden light radiated brightly with an immense aura. Yeah, definitely feels different. The light and the shockwave from the sword were too powerful, which caused Junseo to stagger backwards, momentarily blinded by it. Meanwhile, Elizabeth's mocking smile was suddenly wiped off her face with a worried expression, thinking that based on the energy she feels from the sword polluted with mana, it must be a flame attribute special ability, intensified, making it seem quite powerful. Junseo flinched when he stared in Elizabeth's direction. Finishing her thought, Elizabeth outstretched her arms, open palm exposing her long nails. She excitedly released another blood magic skill, Blood Territory, which ensured her attack had the desired effect. With immediate effect, a massive stream of blood was summoned underneath her, rapidly flowing directly towards the party and ensnaring everyone, immobilizing them completely. This shocked Junseo greatly as he wondered how Elizabeth is consistently using wide-range skills effortlessly. Elegantly, Elizabeth licked her fangs and rested her cheek on her finger in a mocking gesture and said to Junseo that polluted mana and flames are decent and the synergy is pretty good. However, your mana management and metabolism will slowly be paralyzed. It's going to melt everything down to your body's bones, muscles, nerves, and veins. Well, if some time passes, the pain won't be that bad. With great satisfaction, her bragging rant was cut off as Taehyun casually walks towards her with his blazing aura to match it. Elizabeth, looking visibly annoyed, thought that Taehyun was moving perfectly fine even after activating Bloodbath Territory. To be exact, he's not perfectly fine, but his body isn't of his own will and consciousness, but the sword's ability. Even the power he can display. I should take this fight seriously because he seems to be much stronger than earlier. Elizabeth stretched out her hand and clenched her fist in the air excitedly, saying how this is going to be fun. Destroying dolls is after all her specialty. Taehyun dashes towards Elizabeth at lightning speed as she executed a powerful forward stomp. Raised both arms and wings, amassing an immense force to bolster her impending blood magic strike. Thirsty hands. Two enormous blood hands emerge, and she directly aimed it at Taehyun, who faced it head-on. Tightly gripping Leviathan, Taehyun released an intense aura which momentarily petrified Elizabeth shitless. Sheesh. I'm truly astounded, Junseo smirks as he holds his chest. Then in one all-encompassing slash, the hands were completely sliced through like butter and directly smashed Elizabeth, causing her to spurt a mouthful of blood. At the same time, the system window notifies Junseo of the main quest being accomplished. The hidden boss Vampire Elder, Elizabeth Bathory raid was a success. Elizabeth laid on the ground with her wounds unable to heal as she struggles to stay alive. Junseo received his reward in the form of an item, and he hoped that it's an item related to recovery or capacity of mana. The system also notifies him of that information record of the demonic sword, Leviathan, will be stored. Therefore, there would not be any further requirement to search in the future to materialize it. Completely unaware of this prior, he thought that. Is the standard for searching for weapons completely random? Meanwhile, Taehyun was violently shaking all over, completely drained. He was even rendered to incoherent words when he tried to speak. Don't think about getting up and just stay there. Even if you get up, you're not in a state to walk. Maybe if you were fine, but you had already taken quite a bit of damage and then put out that level of output. Rest for a bit. After all, it doesn't seem like anyone's life is at risk, Junseo said to Taehyun as a reassurance gesture. Still struggling to stay alive, Elizabeth congrats Junseo for his contribution in defeating her. It does look fetal, but why did the raid success pop up when she's still alive? Junseo thought as he stares at the lying Elizabeth. He then asked Elizabeth what relation she has with this dungeon. What's controlling those dolls is clearly the same polluted mana I can feel from you. But you don't have control over those dolls. Rather, those dolls move to protect you as their priority. Elizabeth replied, of course they have to protect me. I'm their precious power source that helps maintain them. She further explains that long ago, she indulged her recently dead family on a whim. Something she normally wouldn't have done, but she saved their lives as their paths crossed. However, if that was all, then it would have ended up a strange story, but they were also a bit strange. They approached me saying something along the line of, "We can't just let our savior go. Please accept our invitation." That was my first time hearing that from a human, so I was trapped like that. I don't know what was the turning point exactly, but when I regained myself, I wasn't their guest, but part of their family. Although it was a short time, I was happy, until I realized why they truly accepted me into their family. Of course, it was my fault to have given them a chance to betray and control me in the first place. It was evident that I had become endlessly soft and weak. That's how they trapped me in that body and sealed most of my abilities, so that I'd only supply the necessary polluted mana to protect them. Curious, Junseo asked, protect them from what? I'm not sure. Although I don't know, have you looked outside since entering this estate? It's quite a fascinating scene, and it's an endlessly spreading vast desert. I think no matter what direction you go, there'd be no end to it. It's not a natural desert, but a barrier and a created space made to protect the estate. I'm sure Mom used my power to make it to protect themselves from the monsters across the fissure. Junseo was visibly alarmed by this information, but Elizabeth continued anyway, asking that judging from Junseo's reaction, their world must have a fissure too, right? That's how you came here, I guess. Our worlds must have gone through the same things. A fissure appeared in the sky, and humans awakening with mana. One by one, doors begin to appear. What appeared from inside of them were monsters much crueler than a vampire like me. Junseo interrupted Elizabeth asking, "So how did your world handle the calamity of the gates? How many years passed after the first fissure? Calamity? Oh, that was the conclusion. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see it myself. After being trapped in that body, I spent a dark time not being able to move. During that time, my world fell and this estate was isolated. I only recently became able to move since it appeared in front of my eyes." Turns out, Elizabeth is a player of her world, and her hidden quest she received was to repel intruders coming from different worlds. Her target was 100 intruders with her freedom from her world as a reward. Junseo looked like he has been struck by lightning, soaking in everything Elizabeth said. Unfortunately for him, Elizabeth's time was up as her body began to collapse. "Sorry, I know you have a lot of questions, but I don't think I will be able to satisfy your questions." Accepting her inevitable end, Elizabeth laid on the ground helplessly, moments away from her death. Panicked, Junseo tried to find a way to help her. Sensing his resolve, the system notified Junseo that his reward, demon shackles of control, can be used. Junseo opened the item and smiled delightfully, staring at what was inside. He took out something in the form of a necklace and put it around Elizabeth's neck. The system window popped up showing that the demonic shackles of control was successful, displaying its attribute. Forced imprisonment item can be used on defeated monster in a critical state. Elizabeth's body began to glow with a golden light as she heals. This isn't a coincidence. I could save this and use it until later, but I'm personally interested, Junseo says as he got on his feet. Elizabeth's eyes opened wide in disbelief as his body was fully recovered. The system explains that upon success of equipping, the relevant monster will be healed from any critical condition. However, the relevant monster will be the subordinate as a familiar to the player who has equipped the item. Hearing this, Junseo smiled, revealing all his white teeth, saying, "I have seen many players with familiars, but this is a complete first."